absolutely. So, again, thank you for joining us today. I can see from some of the messages in the chat box that we have a few people who are unfamiliar with crowdfunding that might not have experienced raising money in this way before. So, what we'll look at initially is what is crowdfunding and how it could potentially benefit you in by becoming part of your fundraising strategy, for want of a better word. So, crowdfunding essentially is going out to your community, your crowd, or your network of people around you and generating donations. So, I'm sure lots of you will be familiar with the concept of crowdfunding, just maybe not in this kind of digital format necessarily, or with our particular platform. We are one of a few different fundraising platforms that are out there. I've got a few of you are naming a few in the chat as well, which is fab. So you've obviously got some experience of using some of the other fundraising platforms. Us here at Crowdfunder UK, we are a UK-based company. We've been around now. Hi, Lucy. Thank you for joining us. Um, we've been around now for about 14 years or so. We are very much a kind of grassroots organization. We've achieved huge things over that time, but we are very much a team of people who are assisting and supporting projects as best we can to raise money. And we've seen some really, really great results. We have a crowd, or what we would consider a crowd, if you like, of individuals that have supported and our partners, which is over kind of, 5 million people, if you like, that we've been able to reach out to and engage with. Seeing over 100,000 different projects coming through our platform as well, all raising money, predominantly again for kind of grassroots organizations. So lots of sports clubs, lots of community organizations and charities. We also do support, profit making businesses and individuals, personal causes, all those sorts of things. But today we're going to focus on crowdfunding for sports and physical activity with that bowls focus. And actually bowls is one of our top ranked, if you like, top ranked crowdfunding success stories. I think it places third after cricket and rugby, I believe, and then bowls, one of the most successful sports when it comes to crowdfunding. So you're in good company. Okay, so crowdfunding in a nutshell. Essentially, with ourselves at Crowdfunder UK, you would set up a free to access profile with us. So you'd set up a bit of a profile either as an individual or as the club. And then you'd go on to set your crowdfunding campaign page up. And you can keep that in draft as long as you need it to be there. And you can edit that and add to it as and when you need to. That page is going to be your opportunity to really tell your story, talk about who you are, what you're raising the money for, the plans for your project, and of course, set that fundraising target. We always encourage people to flood that page with images, make it really engaging, try and keep the tone of any of the kind of copy on there quite conversational. Ideally, what you're trying to do is showcase who you are, talk about your obviously your fundraising needs, but also celebrate your wins. So talk about the community impacts, talk a little bit about the history of the club and what's been going on in kind of the social calendar as well. Everything that you're doing needs to really have that human interest point. So try and be authentic, try and keep the personality of the club kind of running through everything that you're doing. You'll then need to go live with your project. So you set it to live and then it is visible on our platform, on our website. And it's up to you to spread that word and bring people along to actually donate to your page. And the way that you do that is you use the link, the URL or the page link and put that into any literature, any print, any social media posts, and also, face-to-face promotion, maybe flyers or posters. There are all sorts of ways that you can market and promote your crowdfunding campaign effectively. And we have loads of resources to help you do that. So lots of things available on our website, different webinars that you can attend, drop-in sessions so you can come along and ask any questions. And then ultimately, we want to see you all get funded and draw down that money into your nominated bank account so you can start spending that on your incredible project ideas and the needs of the club. So in terms of some of those additional benefits then that I mentioned, of course, your primary focus is going to be raising the money that you need to get your project underway. One thing that you might not have considered is some of the additional benefits that come along from raising money in this way. It's very kind of public facing. You are potentially pushed outside of a comfort zone, whereas you might have been used to kind of in-house fundraising, quiz nights, raffles, very much dependent on your existing memberships, or you might be used to filling in grant applications and things like that, all of which have their place. This is something slightly different where we're really encouraging you to actually look more outward into the community and kind of self-promote into different networks. Doing that can bring some really lovely rewards. So things like validation in your idea, building confidence in the project. You can have people leave comments of support on your page when they donate, and actually seeing those come through can be validation in itself, making sure that there is an appetite from your crowd for the project that you're hoping to achieve. Building awareness within your community, not only about your project idea, but also about the club itself. We've heard, different stories from clubs and organisations where they've come back to us and said, actually, we thought we were really well known in our community, but this exercise, this process of crowdfunding has helped us realise that maybe we're not as well known in certain areas, in certain networks, and it's helped us and challenged us in a way to make sure that we're kind of getting that message out there as to who we are and what we do. Some clubs have come back and said, our community didn't realise that we had charitable status, and that's actually come as a bit of a shock and a surprise to them. And now they're more willing to get behind us and kind of engage with us in terms of fundraising. So putting everything out there to the public can seem quite daunting, but actually it can really help to build awareness around who you are and what you're doing. People that support your campaign will naturally become advocates. They'll start talking to their networks about this brilliant campaign that they've supported and lean on that. So have a call to action when you're promoting, which is, please share this with your crowd, with your networks. We'd love for you to be part of this kind of journey with us. And that can foster some really strong connections going forward. You might need to build some new skills, to learn some new skills, or to kind of just fine tune those. And we're here to support you every step of the way, regardless of whether it's in the planning, in the kind of promotion, in the delivery. We have loads of helpful resources to help you at every step. And then we have the match funding or extra funding offer, which we'll discuss today. So we work with partners both nationally and regionally, and that might be a local authority, it could be an NGO, it might be a corporate that has pots of money available for eligible projects, and we kind of sit between yourselves and those partners as the kind of the people that can facilitate the distribution of that via match funding. So you're raising money from your community, and our partners are able to pledge towards your project as well. In terms of as why do sports clubs or physical, activity organizations crowdfund so well? Well, actually, you've got so many of the key ingredients to a successful crowdfunder already at your fingertips. Things like a ready-made crowd. So you will already have a really close core network of people around you. And that might be primary kind of beneficiaries, members, volunteers that you work alongside, people that come and use the facilities. You might be your premises might be used for different sports. You might be in a multi-sports kind of area, and you can utilize all of that to build a really engaged core audience or core crowd. The people that you'll be reaching out to kind of help you with that, they're all going to have that shared passion of wanting to see this happen. Hopefully, you'll be able to work in a bit of a team in order to do this successfully. We always recommend, wherever possible, to really lean on that collaboration. So whether that's working in a team, it might only be a few of you, but having different sets of eyes on the page, having the ability to maybe delegate some of that promotion or some of that networking out to other individuals is highly recommended. You can do it on your own, of course you can, but it's always easier to do things with, a few more people around you to kind of lighten the load. Chances are, as I mentioned, you'll be known in the community and you can build upon that. You might even have the ability to set fundraising challenges or activities so you can really involve the community in helping to raise money on behalf of the club and towards the crowdfunding campaign. In terms of that network that you'll have around you, you'll be able to have a few different calls to action on top of or as well as, please can you donate money to our crowdfunding campaign? Things like sharing, as I mentioned, so sharing your crowdfunding campaign link with their networks. Also, things like offering you rewards, and we'll look at rewards a little bit later on. Essentially, they are something that you would give back to a supporter for their financial contribution. So they would claim a reward. It might be something like a high street voucher for a local restaurant. It might be discounted membership for the following year. It might be a sponsorship opportunity. It might be an event that you're putting on, so tickets to that event. Essentially, they can be tangible, they can be physical rewards, they could even be things like a shout out on social media or your name listed in the wall of thanks on our website or somewhere in the clubhouse. So think creatively about the types of things you could offer as a club and also reaching out to your business community, to your network to source some of these rewards that you would list on your page at a price point. Ideally, at a bargain price compared to how the price that they would, go and get them from the high street. So, a high street voucher might be, let's say, £50 to spend towards a meal for two. It's a pretty cheap meal for two in this day and age, but voucher towards a meal for two with a £50 value. You might list that on your page at £30 or £40 for that supporter to claim. That way, that supporter is incentivized. They're going to get a £50 voucher for 30 quid. So they're going to claim that on your page. They're feeling happy because they're getting themselves, £50 voucher and they've only spent £30. You're feeling happy because you've got their donation of £30 or their pledge. The local business is feeling happy because they've just got two customers, especially kind of out of season. And it's that collaborative approach where you're going to promote the local business and say, this is wonderful that they're supporting us by giving us this voucher. You're going to prompt them to kind of market that into their own networks and maybe put it on their social media that they're actually, given this voucher to this great cause, this great local club. And it's that mutually beneficial marketing. So actually the community becomes part of this as well. You might have alumni or celebrities that have come through the ranks. If you can, reach out to them, see if they might share your campaign. We've seen some big names donate to different campaigns that they resonate with, whether that's sports personalities, whether that's, actors and people within film that have donated to kind of closing theatres and all those types of things. So do reach out. It's not necessarily going to be the thing that, completely fully funds your campaign, but there's no harm in trying, and it might just get a little bit more exposure. And then always highlight that community impact that you're achieving, you have achieved, and that you're hoping to continue if you can raise that money. Okay, so next I think it would be really good to focus on the movement fund. So Lucy's joined us. Hi Lucy, thank you so much for joining me today to talk through the movement fund. I'm going to remove myself from screen and hand over to you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Zoe. I apologise for arriving a little bit late. I was on a phone call to a cricket club advising about funding, so I got a little bit late. So some of you I might have spoken to on Monday, earlier on this week. So this is just a bit of a shortened version of what we talked about then. So it's understanding that if you do want to crowdfund, then you can apply for it through our main route, or you can do it via the crowdfunding website. The movement fund is able to fund you for up to £15,000. This could be as a grant, or it could be up to 50% of a crowdfunding project. So if you're looking at the bigger numbers, you could get enough money for funding a £30,000 project. So you could be looking at some of your facility improvements. That would probably fall into that bracket, whether that's to do with drainage, clubhouse, lighting, all of those kinds of things, the kind of projects that we typically have supported bowls clubs with in the past. We do have funding priorities for the movement fund. So this is just a short list. I say short, there's about 10 or 12 items on there, but it's not, if you don't feel that your audience falls into those brackets, please don't worry. You can explain to us how your audience is perhaps struggling to get active, or there is a challenge that you as a club and your audience are trying to overcome to get physically active. So on here, we have got those that might be older. They could be those with a long-term health condition, those from more diverse backgrounds. It could be young families. It could be those who are providing care without pay. These would all be people who would be very much eligible to receive to support a project with our funding. But it's not a definitive list. There could be others out there. Okay. Next slide, please. So there are a couple of routes in to the Movement Fund. On Monday, we focused very much on coming in through the Sport England website, which is where it will come through, and we will then, depending on what you've applied for, and if you're eligible to, the project is eligible for our funding, we would then direct you as to whether you could receive a straightforward grant from us, or we would support you through a crowdfunding campaign. So that would be the first point of call, really. So if you haven't already applied at all, you can come in through the Sport England website. However, crowdfunding, as Zoe has already touched on, is such a rewarding activity to get involved with. So not only is it, yes, raising funds for your club, but there's all the other wider benefits too that come with the crowdfunding. I've been working with the team for the last few years now and supporting organisations to crowdfund, and it's fabulous. It's really good. And understanding the strategy behind it, how best to play your cards. Obviously, we know everyone wants to get to that target and raise that money, but there is so much more to learn along the way. So if you are in or you are thinking that crowdfunding is something you would like to go for, that might be because you know your project is more facility orientated. And from a movement fund perspective, we are potentially more likely to award a pledge towards a facility type improvement project. You can draft your campaign through the Crowdfunder portal. And then within there, you can then direct that to get some funding from us. So we are classed as an extra funder on the Crowdfunder website. You might see some others on there. There are a few different ones which are related to different counties. I know Cornwall and Devon often have some pots there for support. But we are classed as an extra funder on there, and you can then direct your application to us, and we will consider whether we are able to support that project. So this is just a little slide explaining how, if we have agreed to fund your project, how I talked a little bit about the strategy and how we it's not playing a game, but it helps understand the psyche and the understanding behind why we do what we do. So you might launch your crowdfunding campaign, you've sent it to everybody. Sport England, we have agreed to fund you with 50% of whatever your target was. So the time starts to tick along. And when you get to 25% of that initial target and 25 unique supporters, you will see our 50% drop onto that campaign page. That then helps to give that campaign a boost, not only with the target, but it's showing that external backing from a bigger body outside, a national organisation, for example. It also then gives you reason to shout about that. Look, this is what's happened. This is what's showing on our campaign page. Come on, everyone, let's try and get to that 100% target, and then we can secure that pledge from Sport England. So it all kind of works alongside the timeline of your campaign with the best times and opportunities to communicate with your audience.
Thanks, Lucy. I think just going back to that one, we will circulate the slides as well. So you've got these, but that's always something really important to bear in mind. And I'm sure Lucy went through this with everybody on Monday as well. But with the match funding, just making sure that when you're setting your target, you're actually including any of that match funding in that target amount. So if you are looking to raise, say, £30,000, you're actually counting the fact that £15,000 of that could be from Sport England. Okay, so whatever match funding you're applying for needs to be part of your initial target amount. Lucy's going to be on the call for the rest of the session, so please do put any questions about the Movement Fund or, Sport England or any of those questions into the chat box, and we will loop back a little bit later on. Okay, I mentioned rewards there a few times. So that rewards option, that ability to add rewards onto your page, it's not something that you have to do, but it is definitely something that we see can be really beneficial with crowdfunding. So We have done a bit of a data dive over recent years, and we've seen that typically projects that add rewards to their page can see the average pledge amount leap up by around 30%. And now that doesn't mean that it's because everybody's claiming those rewards. Rewards can play a part in many different ways. It can incentivize people to give a little bit more. So, for example, you can see here some of the examples on the screen. So maybe I'm already looking to renew my membership for the club for next year. So I'm going to get that through the crowdfunding campaign because actually that's going to really help at this moment in time to maybe either pay that a little bit early or maybe it's at a discounted rate. But then also there's things from the wider community too. So like a discounted sharing platter. I might have an event coming up. It might be somebody's birthday. And actually that's really inviting for me. I want to be able to get my hands on that so I can actually put on a nice spread for my auntie's birthday, let's just say. They've got a coffee fundraising morning, a really nice, easy price point for lots of people. So £3 will cover coffee and a cake going along and actually having that at that coffee morning, but they're paying for it up front. So things that you would have capacity to put on yourselves and things that you could actually bring in from your wider community, things like the half-hour sports massage or that discounted sharing platter. Not all of these rewards will necessarily sell through. They might not all be kind of pledged upon or claimed, but what these are doing is also giving you opportunity to promote your crowdfunder. So you might focus on one of these rewards for some of your promotion over a few days or a week or so. You might keep some of the rewards back and actually not list them on your page until maybe partway through your campaign to give people a reason to come and look at the page again. It gives you opportunity to go and speak to people within your network. And as I mentioned, those kind of different calls to action and those icebreakers, if you like, when you're having conversations about crowdfunding, you can now talk about more than please give us your money, which can be a really difficult ask for lots of people. So those conversations become, please, would you promote our crowdfunder? So share it with your networks, or please, would you put this poster up in your venue? If you can, please could you donate us a reward that we could list on our page, and we'd be more than happy to kind of shout about you on our in our promotion or on our website or whatever. And then it could also be, and if possible, please make a donation or make a pledge. So there's lots of different ways that you can have those conversations, and having rewards listed on your page can be a really good angle to start those conversations. And by doing that, it means that potentially overall the amount you're raising has actually increased as well. One of the hardest parts of crowdfunding is actually understanding how best to promote your campaign and how to connect with that audience and that crowd of people around you. And I find the simplest way to do that is actually to break up your potential crowd and your potential audience into much kind of easier to manage groups, if you like. So segment your audience into kind of close family members. Maybe think about the local educational venues, so schools and colleges, your local business community, maybe your existing customers or supporters, and that might be existing members or beneficiaries. Think about things like press as well, and maybe local radio. Social media may well play a part, but obviously if you don't have a social media presence, then it's not going to be one of your biggest draws. One thing I will say though is kind of in this day and age, it's always wise to have some kind of social media presence just to be able to reach out to a slightly wider network. For each of these different groups, you want to think about the best way to contact them and communicate with them. So for close friends and family, is that going to be an in-person conversation? Is it going to be the family WhatsApp group? Is it going to be, an in-person chat or picking up the phone? For local schools, colleges, it might be speaking to, the PTA, or if they're part of an academy, speaking to the academy trust. If maybe there's people who have children that go to those local schools, can they be your advocates and go and have those conversations on your part? And think about, again, those calls to action. What is it about your project that's going to resonate with each of these groups best? And why does that story matter to them? Of course, you're going to be passionate about what you're raising money for, but what is it that's going to really resonate with each of these different smaller groups that's going to make them want to donate or make them want to get involved? So with those maybe schools and colleges. It might be that actually you've got the ability to set a fundraising challenge, and it can be something that they can do which will get them active and get them kind of moving and being part of this. You might even think about hosting a community day or a school day where people can come and try bowls. And you could ticket that, and maybe parents could pay a nominal amount of money towards the fundraising efforts. So, why does the project matter to each of these groups? Lead with that as a priority when you're communicating with them, and vary that communication so that actually the way in which you are promoting to these groups lands well. Send personal emails wherever possible rather than kind of a blanket email. Pick up the phone, put it into your little chat groups, send a newsletter to members if that's what you would normally do. Try and avoid kind of blanket marketing, blanket promotion where it's like one size fits all, because some people will pick up on that, but the majority of it will kind of fall through the cracks and it won't actually yield the same results as if you make it as personal and personable as possible. And always try and keep your supporters in the loop. So post regular updates to your page, reach back out to different people within this network map, we call it. Thank them for their support, or maybe give them a nudge if they haven't engaged yet. See what works, see what doesn't, and where you might need to kind of change tack and find a different way to reach out to that group. And a good thing to do to kind of keep tabs on all of that is to have some kind of spreadsheet or some kind of way that you can refer back to the audience group that you're reaching out to, the way in which you've actually approached them, and then actually where you're at with that. So this kind of status update. So you can see here with the primary school, for example, the method that was chosen was word of mouth, thinking about a fundraising event. So talking to the PTA, putting some messages out there into their WhatsApp group, and also some emails going out to parents from the school itself, which you've obviously drip fed them the information to go into those. And the status update is that you're actually arranging a school fundraising day. So you've been in conversation with the school, and that can get updated as and when that kind of comes to fruition and you have a date in mind. Especially if you're working as a team, it means you can all refer back to the same thing and you know where you stand with everything. And then when you have that live campaign, it's a really good way to make sure that you're keeping up momentum. And that's really, really important throughout a crowdfunding campaign. A few examples of bowls clubs that have done that really successfully is Lonsdale Bowling Green. They were actually looking to raise money in order to essentially they wanted to make sure that they could maintain the green. They did a really good job of engaging their local community. They had some really affordable rewards as well, and at different price points, which encouraged the wider community to get behind them and actually to pledge on those rewards or claim those rewards. And of course, having received that match funding from Sport England, that gave them a little bit more of a boost to be able to go back out to that community and secure the funding by reaching their target. And again, Hadfield Bowling Club, they did a really great job, actually, again, of being able to kind of clearly explain what it was that they were raising money for. That's really important, making sure that your page is nice and clear, making sure that their supporters knew exactly what upgrading the floodlights would do. So it would be able to improve that safety, it would be able to increase inclusion, and making sure that it actually protected a valued community asset, which is the bowls club, making sure that, future generations were able to access and participate in the sport and in the club. Doing that in a way that resonates with your community and the community beyond those that are already participating in bowls is a challenge sometimes. And these guys did it really well. So make sure that we share all of these different projects with you so you can get some inspiration. But I would always recommend taking a little look at projects that have come before you to see what works, what resonates with you as an individual that might be looking to support, and then replicate that on your own pages. Okay, so some of the tips to get you started then. Do have a go live date in mind. Really, you want to work backwards from when you need that money. When do you need this project to kind of come to fruition? When do you need to spend your money? Work backwards. Think about what you have coming up in the calendar for the club. Think about your capacity. Think about what might be involved in planning and also then going live with a campaign. Ideally, we would recommend you putting in pretty much time planning as you are running the campaign. If you have planned effectively, got all your ducks in a row before you go live, the process of having a live campaign can be really fun and really exciting. What's tricky is if you go live with a campaign and then you're kind of chasing your tail because you haven't really done the planning element as well as you could do. But always have that go live date in mind and think about in the lead up to that date, having early conversations with people who are close in your network, and that might be friends and family, it could be fellow volunteers, it might be members, and actually get some promises of pledges so that when you go live, you can go back to those people. You can get those donations and pledges on your page ASAP, and then you can start shouting about it to a wider audience. That way, you're already going to look like a strong project as soon as you go live. It's going to build some credibility and some validation in what you're doing. And when you start promoting to a wider audience, those people looking at your page will already see that it's got momentum, that it's on its route to success, and they're more likely to support you. Set some realistic goals. So think about the target and how much you need to get your project underway. Really, I'd be encouraging you to think about the minimum that you might need to get this project over the line. You can always overfund a project, so you can always have two fundraising goals in mind if you need to. One being your initial target, and that again encompasses some of that match funding that you might be eligible for and approved for. So you have your initial target, which is the minimum you need to make this thing happen. And then you can have something that we call it a stretch target, which essentially is continuing to raise money beyond your initial target for all of those additional things that just make your project kind of sing and take it to another level. Or it could be to finance something that's slightly different to your main project ask. You're in complete control of what that stretch target goes towards. But think about the minimum you need for your initial target. And if it is a relatively large target, even if it isn't, start thinking about how to break that down into some more achievable milestones throughout the course of the live campaign as well. It just makes it a bit more palatable for your supporters to be able to get behind you and see where the money's going. So even if your target was maybe £10,000, you might say, right, we're running this for 10 weeks. Each week we're aiming to raise £1,000, and that £1,000 will cover this portion of our project and it will go towards X, Y, and Z. So at the end of the week, you can say, we did it. We're now able to cover the costs of X, Y, and Z. Let's move on to next week where we'll be financing this, that, and the other. So you can break everything down into milestones, into kind of smaller goals, and you can promote those effectively as part of the bigger campaign. Telling a strong story and incorporating lots of visuals, maybe even a video, is a great way to engage your supporters and keep their interest throughout the whole page. You want to draw their eye down through your project page to make sure that they're gleaning all of the relevant information. We've got some great hints and tips on how to do that effectively. But essentially, we want you to be authentic. We want you to really be transparent, honest with your supporters, bringing them into your world as well. So, but making it feel kind of conversational, with that human interest point, essentially kind of keeping it real for want of a better word. But they really do want to support the people behind the project as much as they do the project itself. And as I've mentioned before, staying connected with your supporters is really important too. And actually going back to your page once you're able to spend the money and say, we cut the ribbon on the new pitch or clubhouse or whatever it might be, green, I should say, in this instance. And here's some pictures of our open day, or here's some pictures of the event that we held to celebrate. Post that onto your kind of previous campaign page as an update because it will get sent out to all of the people that have supported you and donated. And it also can become a really lovely digital archive or digital kind of profile, if you like, of your achievements. And that crowdfunding campaign link could be put into future grant applications, to showcase what you're able to do. The fact that you not only raised X amount of money from your community, you had, this many people support you, you unlocked Sport England match funding. All of that is a big achievement and it can be celebrated and utilised for actually unlocking funding in the future as well. Okay, that brings me to the end of the kind of slides section. I appreciate that we went over quite a lot there in quite a bit of detail. I have seen the chat box kind of lighting up, so hopefully there'll be some questions in here for myself and Lucy. Let's have a look. You might have had eyes on the chat box more than me, Luce, for a sec.
I've had a few. I had a couple come through on the Q&A section, which one of those was about setting up a QR code,
Okay.
which yes, you can. So once you have a campaign page, there is an option to create a QR code specific to your campaign. So you can print them up and put them up in sort of prominent places. Perhaps you're running an event, a barbecue, summer event, something like that. It just means that rather than have people putting money into a pot, you can uh, put one of these up. People can use their phone to take a photo, takes them straight to the campaign page so they can look it up like that. We've had a few where it was about specific project types. So one was asking about carpets for indoor bowls. Yes, we would consider that a facility improvement. What is key to any application to movement fund, either as an extra funder through here, so if you've got a campaign running, or if you come in through what we have classed as our front door through the Sport England website, what is key to any application is making sure that you can demonstrate how that is going to increase more people to get active. How is that going to then bring more people in? So actually, is it limiting the activities that you currently run by not having a carpet there which is fit for purpose? You need to be able to demonstrate that explanation to us. Okay. Similarly, someone was asking about installation of a new boiler. If that's going to bring greater efficiencies all around, you're looking at also environmental sustainability within that as an option for a project. It's a facility improvement as well. Yes. But in the same sort of vein as we talked about the carpet project, you've still got to be able to show us, okay, so bringing this in is going to have these changes, which are going to enable us to get more people active. Okay.
Fabulous, thank you. And just going back to that QR code comment as well. We've seen some really creative uses of QR codes over recent years. So people have done things like bake sales, and actually they've put a QR code in kind of rice paper on top of a cake, or they've put it on t-shirts, and they've kind of, gone and done community events and things, networking events, and it's right there kind of front and center for people to just scan and go straight to the page. The other thing that we've seen as well, and actually especially within bowls clubs, what they've done, which has been really lovely, is kind of almost set up a bit of a donation station. So there's kind of somebody there to actually assist if needed in the process, because it might be a new process for some people. You can always, we should probably mention, Lucy, as well, because there will be people that are just reluctant to donate in this way. And we do see it, don't we? You can still obviously do kind of donations into a bucket and then put that onto your own crowdfunding campaign. If possible, always signpost people directly to the page to make those donations. However, there might be some people that actually would just prefer to give you a little bit of cash. And if that's the case, you could always put that into your club bank account and actually transfer it onto the crowdfunding campaign yourselves. With that in mind, just make sure that you're keeping some kind of, paper trail, audit trail of that
Yeah.
happening. You
Mhm.
might want to put an update or some comments on your page just to say kind of where that's come from. Maybe it was an in-person raffle or an in-person event that you're doing, a quiz night or something. And also just keep up communication with yourselves, I guess, as well, Lucy, because it will be flagged, won't it, to Sport England? If you see lots of, pledges coming in directly from the club, it will get questioned. So just
Yeah.
make sure that you've kind of got all of that covered and speak to Sport England if you need to.
There's a few more questions. There's one asking, can you put club funds in to kickstart the fundraising? Um, Sport England don't mind if the club puts in a small amount onto your campaign. What we need to make sure is that when you actually apply, is that we're not double funding in a way. So is that money that's already been allocated for this project in advance? Um, I would also say it's quite a good idea to try and maximize the crowd before you start sort of topping up. If you find you're towards the end of your campaign and you need just that little bit more to get to hit to target, have that conversation with us and we can give you the, yeah, okay, just go for it, get it on there. We want to get you over the line. We don't want to hold up your project unnecessarily. We want to help you. But sometimes that is probably more useful than necessarily putting it on at the beginning, I would say. That's
Right.
just one of these kind of little strategy things that we've learned along the way. There was someone also saying we should set the time limit to 6 weeks and increase it to 8 weeks if necessary. Is that just for Sports England? I think we have found over the years that if you leave a campaign going for too long, it loses focus. It can become tired and people stop following what you're up to. So I would recommend 6, 8 weeks, and we can always extend. So if you're getting nearer and nearer, but you need a bit more time, we can help you extend. That's not a problem. If you set it at 12 weeks right at the beginning, you've got nowhere to go. And that's 3 whole months. That's actually quite a long time for you to be sharing that same page, and people will see it and get a bit tired and perhaps not respond to your calls for action. So yeah, the shorter and sweeter the better, but you can always extend if you need to, is what I would say with that one.
Yeah, it's a really good strategy. Ultimately, think about your capacity as well, and think about
Mm.
you need to really kind of throw everything at this if you can while it's live, having done that planning in the first instance. So you've got a bit of a strategy of how to promote it. And the idea is keeping that momentum. So keeping the promotion varied. Try if you can to avoid every single bit of kind of promotion that goes out there saying we're crowdfunding, please give us your money, or we're crowdfunding, please give us your money, offer a reward, share our project. The way that you keep that momentum is keeping the promotion varied. So focusing on a local business that supported you with some of that promotion, or focusing on a specific reward, maybe even just focusing some of that promotion around something that's happening within the club. It could be a fixture, it could be that you've actually had an event. That is the leading kind of narrative and leading story. And at the end of that, it leads back to, and also we're crowdfunding. So as Lucy said, people will naturally kind of tune out from that message once they've heard it a couple of times, whether they've supported you or not. So how do you re-engage them? And it's not always about the crowdfunding, it's about just bringing them back into kind of your world with those human interest points. We've got a good one here actually from Mark. If we have already made a grant application to the movement fund, can we also set up or start up a crowdfunding campaign?
If you've not had a decision back from your application, I would wait to get that back before you start a campaign. It might be that you are successful, but that we've made that decision to offer you a pledge. So I would just wait. If you wanted to start drafting something in advance, if you know that potentially you would do a crowdfunding campaign anyway, even if you weren't successful for getting money from the movement fund, you could do that. If you want to start a draft campaign, you could. Just don't set it live yet, is probably what I would say.
Brilliant, thank you. Um,
Um,
sorry.
there's quite a few different ones. There's one asking about videos. I would keep the original video at the top. So on the campaign page, you can set up a short video, 1 to 2 minutes, that just explains what your project is raising for, and it is that original call to action. In terms of the updates later on, you could put those or include those. There's a separate function within your dashboard where you write a little written update, and in there you could probably include photos and things like that. Or if you wanted to do it offline away from the page to your supporters with a short video, you could do that. But I would keep the core video at the top, because you never know it's going to be their first drop onto your page, and that is what was selling it originally. So that's quite important.
Absolutely. And you can always, just to add to that, you can actually edit the main kind of copy on your page as
Mm.
well, the main content. So it
Yeah.
might be that as the live campaign progresses, you want to actually enhance some of the information that's on there with some additional videos, maybe, some
Mm.
nice little interviews with some
Yeah.
club members or something like that.
Perhaps
But
they
yeah,
run perhaps they have run a sponsored event, and it's just a little snippet to sort
perfect.
of say, oh, we did this and this is how it went. So
Yeah.
it's just an addition, isn't it?
But definitely that original kind of call to action. And as Lucy mentioned, a nice short video, if you have capacity to do so, just literally saying who you are, what you're raising money for, kind of why you're crowdfunding, and that might be because we can access this Sport England Movement Fund, and then how people can help you with those call to actions.
Mm.
Only literally a minute or a minute and a half tops.
Doesn't have
I
to be long.
Doesn't have to be long, can be done on a phone. It doesn't have to look really highly edited or polished. It just needs to be personable. If you've got somebody who's happy to be in front of the camera and they can do it kind of on site somewhere, just limit a bit of background noise, so not on a really windy day like we're having in Cornwall today, but just showcase that personality. Every club has somebody who is kind of the life and soul of that of that club. Get them in front of the camera. If you have a youth section, get them in front of the camera. They love a little bit of video making. Okay, we've had another one about, there was one about
Just to
charities.
quickly, solar panels, yeah, that would be eligible. We have funded, yeah, energy efficiencies, those kinds of projects that would come under our environmental sustainability banner. And the savings that you can make can then obviously be reinvested into increasing activity. So that would be something we would consider.
Brilliant.
Um, Charity claiming gift aid, yes, you can. So those donating can tick that I'm happy to gift aid. There is a feature within the dashboard that will allow you to download a list of your people that have pledged and ticked the gift aid box, and you can then submit that to HMRC, so you can claim that the gift aid later on.
Fabulous. We've
Um,
got one about social media. So, as a social media novice, should I try to set up pages on multiple sites and put links back to the fundraising site? I would suggest that if you're considering crowdfunding, now might be as good a time as any to think about setting up some kind of profile for the club. It doesn't have to be on every single social media site. Think about the ones that might work best for you, where actually you'll see more of your audience or more of your existing network are already using it. So that might be something like Facebook, might be something like Instagram if you're more kind of image based in terms of, photos and things. Whatever works for you. Just one would be fine initially, but it might be a good opportunity to actually start building that kind of presence for the future of the club as well, not just for a crowdfunding campaign. Okay, if a club were to be successful in getting a grant, so getting movement fund grant, how long do you have to spend the money?
12 months. So from us giving you the funding through until project end, you have up to 12 months. Um, if it's perhaps it is a facility build and there's random delays that come in, perhaps the weather's been appalling, there's been a delay with the builders or whatever, and for some reason there is a delay with projects starting, just get in touch with us. We're usually more than happy to apply a little extension on the project taking place. We're not going to say, well, give us the money back when you're sort of half knee deep in mud on a building site. We want to see you get to completion. So if you need that little bit more time, more often than not, we will say absolutely no problem. Just keep us informed. What we don't want to find is you go completely silent and then we're chasing you and you're getting emails from us saying, can you report? Can you report, please? Tell us how you're going. Just keep us informed. You can send emails through to us on the help desk at funding@sportengland.org, or just phone us on the helpline, which is 03458 508 508, and we can talk you through that. That's not a problem.
Fabulous. I think just one last question then before we do the final slides from Karen. It looks as though they've got a couple of different things that they'd like to fund. Is it worth them putting in two applications, or should they kind of amalgamate everything into one kind of overall project? So the first would be helping those with physical limitations return to sport with improving their door access. And secondly, we'd love to encourage school age students to start to access bowls to promote the sport.
I It depends on how much you're looking. I mean, ultimately, we can't fund more than £15,000 in one 12-month period. So I would look at your costings within that, but there's no reasons why that couldn't come in on one application from our perspective. I think if you were offered a pledge and it was a crowdfunding campaign, um, I guess it can be quite hard to focus on two different directions. It's how you tell that story, I think. I think
What
telling the
about
story of that is key, but the young people could be part of that video as well.
I'm just thinking as well, just spitballing a little bit here and brainstorming. We talked about those two separate targets, didn't we? So is it that actually the primary focus is the door, for example,
The
change,
access.
enhancing that
Mm.
so that you can actually kind of build upon that inclusivity. And then actually maybe your stretch target goes towards being able to run a kind of introductory program or reaching out to the different schools around you to actually run some open days to bring people into the sport. So you could have two separate kind of goals, two separate targets within a wider project. And actually, your stretch target with the little bit of copy that comes with that could go towards either one or the other. Depends how much one of them costs versus the other one. Or it could be a phased approach. You could run a crowdfunding campaign for the door, and then maybe a little bit later on in the year, you could run a slightly smaller one potentially for, reaching out to local student kind of demographic and bringing them into bowls. So there's a few different ways you can tackle it. But I guess ultimately, as Lucy said, it really boils down to how much you need for each of those things and how useful the Sport England, the movement fund could be towards one or both of those. Because they
Yeah.
can apply for the movement fund again, can't they, for a different
Yeah.
project?
Yeah. So if you'd only come in for say 6,000, um, you still have got access to that further nine over the rest of that 12 months if you want to come in again. So that would be entirely up to you. But I see no reason why it couldn't come in on the same one if together it doesn't come to more than 15.
Fab. As in 15 from you. So that would be
Yeah.
potentially, 30,000 overall.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay. Thank you so much, Lucy. I've just got a few kind of support slides to go through before we call it a day. I know that we've got your contact details on here, and we will make sure
Hmm.
that we circulate those with everybody as well. And you and the rest of the team are really quite happy to take calls and emails about
Absolutely.
eligibility.
Absolutely. Not a problem.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for all of your expert knowledge as always. For those of you still with me on the call, just a little bit about the support that we can offer. So, webinars such as this, we have drop-in sessions. You can come along and ask any questions about any element of crowdfunding or your project, at any stage, and you can talk to one of us. And then we have loads of support on the website as well that you can access completely for free at any stage of your crowdfunding campaign. And I'll share links to things like our Knowledge Hub with you as part of the follow-up email. So you can have a little look at that support there. In terms of those contact details, you can always reach out to Sport England with any movement fund questions. With Crowdfunder, you can always email our support team who can triage your questions or come along to one of those drop-ins as well and one of those online events. So I'll make sure I share the kind of booking links with you. And they are, again, all free to access. All that remains to say really is that we are really happy that you spent the last hour with us, and we're really looking forward to seeing you raise funds that you may need for your bowls clubs. Think about adding those projects onto Crowdfunder and drafting those and exploring what match funding opportunities might be available to you. So things like the Sport England Movement Fund, of course, but maybe also there might be a local authority that might support you, or one of our other match funders might be able to support you as well. You can receive pledges from more than one funding partner, which is quite an exciting place to be. So have a little look, explore the site, take a look at some other projects on there as well, and get a bit of inspiration. Launch your project, so go live with your project if that's something that you wish to kind of pursue, and we can support you in doing that. And of course, then telling your crowd that you've gone live and bringing in those funds. Do follow us as well on social media and keep up to date with our online events and things that are happening in terms of launches of new funds and all those types of exciting things. But we look forward to seeing you raise the money that you may need to facilitate your projects, and we are always on hand to support you. So please do reach out and engage with us. Thank you so much for your time today, and good luck with your fundraising.